Hi, Caspian.
Hey, John.
So we had a product meeting the other day talking about releases, and I think we're getting more rapid at releasing new versions of PlaceOS. Interesting sort of thing came up that we have different streams and different frequencies of releases and different ways of cutting a release, basically. Could you talk us through that process and how you manage it?
When you design a versioning scheme, you've got a lot to pick from, and a lot of that comes down to what you require in how you distribute your software, and the way we've kind of designed our system is we kind of have a classical versioned release, which is numeric, contains a reference to the date, and gives you a bit of a stamp in time, to which we have all of the attributes for that release, the changes, the features, or also including all the migrations that would be required for that release. But those are individually tested, and you support them like any other software release. So there's our version channel, and then there's our mutable channels. And by mutable, I mean they change. So we have something called nightly, which is basically just the output of our CI pipeline, just constantly running. So our tests are constantly running whenever we make a change, and it just, once it's done, it gets propagated out to nightly. And then we have
and named nightly because of the frequency of release?
Yeah, so it's essentially happening on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people have different names. There's like unstable, or that's not
nightly's
very nice.
a nicer way of saying it.
Yeah. We also have channels such as preview, and we have channels. I guess essentially that becomes like our unstable release.
So who would subscribe to nightly channel, or is it more for testing?
Like if you're consuming, any software, you've got to be a particular type of user to be on the bleeding edge. Generally, when we're giving out the software, we'll be giving the latest tested numeric release. And the thing about those releases is that they're immutable, and that means they don't change. So when we give a version to a client, or a user is just picking up PlaceOS of GitHub, if there's an issue, it's very, very easy for us to just look at the version number and find the unchanged references for that release, and try to reproduce any issues that were present. But you don't get that kind of ease with a rolling release. I mean, you can, but it's a little bit more work. You need to potentially have access to the environment. You don't know the skill level of the user. But having a consistently versioned and immutable reference scheme allows you to, troubleshoot quicker and skip a few steps. So we have since our application is a microservices based application, we have our own versioning internally, which would be following like a semantic versioning, which is a very popular way of versioning your applications. It essentially encodes, something that will be fixing something that will be adding a feature, and something that will break an interface that you would expect to be stable. And each of those categories are a value, and they go up. So, that's how it's. There's many explainers on them.
Yeah.
But if we did that on a platform level, I think that would be a little bit too much to wrangle. And essentially, the platform should be a consistent system, and having a time-based with iterations per unit of time. We do months.
Yeah.
Those iterations between months, within months, are consistent. And if we roll out a large feature, we do it on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So there's stability between months, and allows us to kind of, use our preview channel to roll out big features, or to test them out, and then kind of switch them on per month rather than.
So how much of this is automated from like nightly, then graduating to a more stable release on one of the other channels, and how much is like a decision that you make?
So, I mean, in an ideal world, everything's automated.
Yeah.
We have tests on every single one of our services. We have integration tests. But I think given our size as a company, it makes more sense to have like a codified process that we follow, that we can, when we have a set of features that make sense to kind of like roll out, we kind of make a change set that will apply to a release. And there's not much automation there. There's definitely always room for more automation.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a manual process to cut a release at the moment. That's pretty common across a lot of companies. But our channels themselves, they're automated. But the canonical referenced immutable releases are cut manually. I've got some ideas about you kind of don't want to rush into automating these processes.
Yep.
Our change logs are like, we have the ability to generate them automatically, but then they contain lots of developer specific information that could use a bit of a reword for a consumer basis, or even a support engineer. They don't necessarily need to know about particular relations between services, but having a high level description of what has changed is really important. So we kind of need to have that translation from these internal semantically versioned updates to a more consumable engineer or client side.
Are you documenting what's changed? Are you literally pulling things into a central point? So what is cutting a release when you're doing it?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I mean, it's a pretty simple process. I just grab the change log between the last version and our preview branch, and I get a diff, just see what has changed, what are all of the what is the change log between these two points in time, and then I just essentially just like rewrite those changes into more high level overview of all of those like fine-grained changes. And it is essentially just opening up a Git branch and then merging it into another, and then we have our releases. All of our builds are automated and pushed out to all the registries and stuff like that. So that side of things is pretty simple. But yeah, I think it's good to have a human in the loop.
Yeah, I think there's obviously benefits to having human in the loop, and if our frequency allows us to, we should keep doing that and automate when we need to.
Yeah. I mean, I think increasing frequency is a bit of a trade. There's a trade-off in terms of stability.
Yeah.
But there's always a trade-off of how much you want to support, because it is good to have. Generally per month we'll go like at max like 5 kind of releases. We could do more, but then there's the subtlety of like if there is an issue, it's we might have a few people sitting in a wider range of versions in a month range, and it's if we were doing say like daily stable supported releases, it would just be a kind of wider gamut. You still have the benefits of immutability and maybe this is a non-point, but it's it is a trade-off, given that we are a relatively small team, being able to.
Well, I think it's the same process in general, even business process, management process. You introduce it when you need it. Otherwise, or maybe a little bit before you need it, so you get in the habit of using the process. But process is all about timing.
Yeah, immature or premature abstraction is also as bad as premature optimization. So.
That's a great soundbite. Last question, pop quiz. What version number are we up to? To the nearest 3 digits.
I'll give you the whole one. It's 1.2111.2.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll validate that and let you know if you
So
want.
that's the major version is 1, 21 is 2021.
Yep.
And then month 11, November, 0.2, which is how many iterations we've had. We've had 3
This month.
iterations. So 0 indexed
Yep.
goes up from there. So that means we've had 3 versions in November so far.
Cool.
Yep.
Actually, one last question. What's the cool feature coming up?
Some rumblings in the asset manager pipeline is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting new approach to developing product features, which is seems to be like quite efficient. And I think like given we have all of this process, I think like our ability to iterate and like roll out features is like stabilized and yeah, it's good. I don't know. There's lots of features. I don't know.
I mean, we've got this good foundation now of this release process and
Had it for a while.
a very healthy like product roadmap. And now it's like getting through that as fast as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Caspian.